me that my microphone is working.
Yeah, come to the line. Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, Martha Nyla.
Oh, wow.
I was talking to Martha Nyla, speaking to Martha Nyla.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, yeah, she's on. There she is, waving her hand. Alhamdulillah.
I don't know what did I do because I do not see me on the board.
You don't
I
see you. I don't, which is interesting. I don't see me. All I see is American Muslim 360, but I don't see,
I see you. I went on and did the live stream. So I'm going to I'm going to put you back in host seat.
oh, okay. All right.
We see your page though.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing that because I don't want that page. What I want is uh just like I could see your face, and even though my video is on, I see you, but do you see
Okay.
me?
Now which one is speaking? Because both of your mics, all of our mics are open. I see all three of us are American Muslim 360. I'm
Yeah,
at the top right now, but I
I
need
don't
to make the right one the host.
I don't know how to I don't
Oh,
know
I
how,
see your voice. You're the bottom one. Okay.
yeah, but
Hold
I
on.
don't see how to, make my video come on.
It was on.
It was on
Uh-huh.
because
It was a white page with some writing.
all I saw was American Muslim 360.
I don't
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's time. It's time.
Okay.
So so should I record? So
yes, sir. You can record, but just no
I'm going to
live stream is
record
on.
and it's going to say record to the cloud.
Okay.
I'm Yeah, I'm recording to the cloud. Okay. So here we go. Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers and sisters, and welcome to another Tuesday on American Muslim 360 with the stories of the lives of the prophets. And we are having a continuing conversation about the first prophet, which was Adam. And we've went through some of the procedures and steps that the Quran tells us about the creation of
I need
Adam,
to mute myself.
about the creation of Adam, and about some of the um, evolutions, evolvements that he had to go through before he came to the earth. So that's what we were talking about in the past. But today, what we're going to talk about is uh, something that is in the book, The Stories of the Lives of the Prophets, where Ibn Kathir says that Adam knew he bade farewell to peace and he left paradise. This is something that uh, we know as those who commit sin, those who are put in a paradise, are put in a good situation. And then once we are put in a good situation that God has blessed us with, we get put in a very good situation. And then the next thing you know, we do something wrong and everything goes ass backwards. Everything starts to unravel. The things that we've built up just start to change. And these are matters of the heart and matters of the mind. Well, these are things that Adam became aware of because he was in paradise. That's what the book tells us. This is dwell you and your wife in paradise and eat of the good things, all the good things here in paradise. Just eat of all the good things. You got everything you need, but don't touch this tree. Don't touch this tree. So they had everything, but because of this something that was in Adam and Eve, or Adam and Hawa, they winded up touching the tree. And when they touched the tree, when they ate from the tree, they became aware of the sin. They became aware of a path that was not paradise. They became aware of sin. And there was a consequence for that. They knew that they were wrong because they felt it and they knew it, mentally knew it. That's why it says Adam knew he bade farewell to peace. He knew he was in a good situation. Him and his wife was in a good situation, and he had to bear farewell. And there was a consequence to that. There was a consequence. And that's what Allah put into him, that he had to face the consequence of disobeying. He had to face the consequence that Adam and Eve had to face a consequence for disobeying God. And even though, and although Adam and Eve, Adam and Hawa realized that they had done wrong, when they realized it and seeing God let them know in their heart and in their mind, let them know, did not tell you not to eat from here, did not tell you that Satan was your avowed enemy, did not tell you that. Why did you disobey? And so they became conscious, guilty conscious. And then they called out, oh God, please, forgive us for what we have done. You put us in a good situation, and this good situation that you put us in, we messed up. And if you don't forgive us, then we're going to be, we're going to, definitely be wrong forever. But God had to let them face the consequence of it. That was the thing. They had to face the consequence. And the consequence was that they now had to leave paradise. They had to leave a good situation that they were in. They had to leave a good situation that they were in. And now they had to descend on earth. And they had to descend on earth to face conflict. What is conflict? They had to face conflict with the other creatures that Allah had put on earth. They had to face that was a consequence. That now, instead of being in paradise and having everything good, now they had to come on earth and face conflict. Conflict. They had to face disagreement. Conflict is disagreement. Conflict is argue. Conflict is quarrel. Conflict is just disagree. I'm going to eat here. No, you ain't going to eat here. I'm going to eat here. Look, who are you? Who you think you are? Like Mr. Who you think you are, Mr. Tiger, that you're going to eat before me? Well, if you don't eat, well, I'm going to eat before you because I'm hungry, I'm bigger, and I can do this to you. Yeah, but like I need to eat too. So like we gonna have to. All right. Since you bigger than me, Mr. Lion, Mr. Tiger, Mr. Bear, and since you bigger than me, I'm gonna have to step back. I'm gonna have to step back. I'm gonna have to let you go ahead and eat. I'm gonna have to, I can't quarrel with you because like I need to continue to live. But when he was in paradise, when Adam and Hawa was in paradise, they didn't have to do that. It was all given to them. So the point is that there is a consequence. There is a consequence for disobeying Allah. That's what it tells us. And that's what Allah has put in his creation. Now, with the other parts of creation, that if a lion meets another lion and they got to, one of them says, yo, I want to eat. And the other one says, yo, I want to eat too. That they may have to fight. They may have to argue. And then one of them is going to come out the winner. And that's the one that's going to go ahead and eat. However, all of the creation is not like that. Because if you put a bird against a lion, who's going to win? The bird knows what the situation is, so the bird ain't not going. As a matter of fact, the bird sees there's a lion that's near him, the bird's going to fly off. Same thing when it's still like that in human nature. That if a bird comes up against a human, birds don't stand around and argue with us. They fly off right away and say, look, I want to avoid this. I don't want conflict. I don't want struggle with this human being. I don't want that. So I'm going to, before we even get there, before we get into the part where we have to argue and struggle, I'm just gonna fly away. I'm not dealing with this human being. I'm not dealing with it. Because this human being is larger than me, or this tiger is larger than me, or whatever is larger than the bird is not going to stand there and fight with him. But with other parts of creation, when the disagreement comes about, there can be conflict. There can be quarrel. Yeah, well, I'm going to do, well, I'm going to do, well, I'm going to, and that's the same today. So this is the struggle that the human being now has to deal with while he's on earth. And this is what Adam had to deal with. Because now Adam comes on earth, Adam and Hawa, they come on earth, and now they got to struggle for their food. When they was in paradise, they didn't have to do that. But now they got to go ahead and search. They got to go ahead and find the food. And they got to come up against the other animals and the beasts of prey. They have to come up against them. And then they had to struggle. So there's conflict and there's struggle because now they have to find a place to eat. The weather is changing. With some of the creatures that Allah made, they automatically had fur to keep them warm, in the changing weather. Now, Adam and Hawa had to find the right type of clothing to wear in the changing of the seasons. The fish, they couldn't just go in the water, but the fish could. The fish was able to swim around. The alligators were able to come on earth, come on land, and then go into the sea. They were able to do that. But Adam and Hawa couldn't. So that they had to learn how to make adjustments to the environment that they were living in. And it was struggle. So these were a couple of the things that happened as far as Adam and Hawa was concerned when they came on the earth. And back to the Quran, when they disobeyed, when Adam and Hawa or Adam and Eve disobeyed, and they said, oh Lord, if you don't, forgive us, we'll surely be lost. And so the Quran goes forward and says, get ye down, go on earth, get ye down on earth. This will be your dwelling place for a time. This is where you will live and this is where you will die. He said, and I will give you guidance. I'll guide you. I'll forgive you. And I'll give you guidance. I'll give you an opportunity to get back to heaven, to the paradise. If you listen to what I'm saying, if you listen to me, if you hear what I'm saying, if you hear my guidance, then you will be guidance. But if you ignore my guidance, then then what's going to happen is there is a result for ignoring my guidance, and I will fill hell up with you. In other words, I will make your life hell if you don't listen to my guidance and you just go ahead and you just going to have to compete. You're just going to have to face that, come to some decision as far as your conflicts are concerned, as far as your arguments is concerned, as far as your struggle. Because also remember, struggle means to make forceful or violent effort to get free of restraints. So to make forceful or violent effort. So that's what an individual has to do when they struggle. They have to make a forceful and violent effort to get free from attack or what it is that they have to deal with. So let us continue. So on earth, he had to face conflict and struggle. No sooner had one struggle ended than another began. So this was something that was continuous. Remember, the other creatures were on earth before Adam and Hawa. And now So they get past one struggle, then here comes another one. And then after that, here comes another one. He had also to toil and to sustain him. He had to toil to sustain himself. He had to protect himself with clothes and weapons and protect his wife and children from the wild beasts. These are things that Adam had and Hawa had to learn. These were instincts that were automatically put in the other creatures. They understood that they had to struggle, okay, and they had to take care of their children. Because remember, all of the creatures that are on earth, they had to struggle in order for them to survive, and they had to procreate in order for their lineage to survive. So they were put into an earth that was full of struggle and conflict. And they had to learn to survive. And while the other creatures that Allah made didn't have the intellect that Adam and Hawa had, they still had to struggle and survive. The advantage that Adam and Hawa had was they had intellect and they could think. They could figure out a way to navigate circumstances and situations. But above all, he had to struggle with the spirit of evil, Satan, the cause of his expulsion from paradise, continued to beguile him and his children in an effort to have them thrown into eternal hellfire. So this was the spiritual struggle that Adam and Hawa had in heaven or in paradise, and now that struggle became the same thing on earth, that they had to contend with this evil spirit, with this satanic spirit that caused the expulsion. So, and this is why I said, well, like, there was this Adam and Hawa. No, this is where the difference came. See, because each individual, Adam was Adam and Hawa was Hawa, but they had to procreate. And in the process of procreating, the idea that Shaitan wasn't going to only affect Adam and Hawa, but it was going to also affect his progeny. It was going to affect Adam and Eve's children. That was the problem. So even though Adam and Hawa, they may have learned what they needed to do against the suggestions of Shaitan, their children didn't necessarily know how to do it. So they had to face the seduction, the seduction of Shaitan. They had to face it. And this is where the problem came in, because Adam and Hawa could protect them physically, but the influencer, the suggester, the whisperer was going to be whispering to their children. And they didn't necessarily have control over that. So what Adam and Hawa had to do was Adam and Hawa had to teach them the lesson that they learned, that if they do wrong, what they have to do is that they have to pray and ask for Allah's mercy and guidance, the one who created them, the one who allowed them to exist. That they had to turn to that one when they made a mistake, and they had to ask that one to forgive them for the mistake that they made, and then to give them guidance. And then the same rule applied. And if they listened to the guidance, then they would be guided aright. But if they didn't listen to the guidance, we're talking about the children, they didn't listen to the guidance, then they would also face a time of struggle and conflict to that degree. And it was going to be, and it was going to be hellish for them. So the battle between good and evil is continuous. But those who follow Allah's guidance and should fear nothing, while those who disobey Allah and follow Iblis will be damned along with him. So, okay, here we go. Oh, okay. This is where we want. Adam grasped all of this, and with the knowledge of this suffering, he started his life on the earth. The only thing that allowed his grief was that he was master of the earth. Master of the earth, meaning that while the other creatures were, moved on instinct and operated on instinct, again, Adam was the one who was given the ability to know the nature of things. And so, because he knew the nature of things and he was able to figure problems out because he had that ability and had to make it yield to him. Okay. So, in the process of conflict, in the process of struggle, because Adam knew and Hawa knew the nature of things, then they had to make the earth yield to them. They had to make the struggles that they were going through. They had to make the conflicts yield to them. Because they were capable of figuring it out. He was the one who had to perpetuate, cultivate, and construct and populate the earth. He was also the one who had to procreate and raise children who would change and improve the world. That's what they said, that he had to procreate and raise children who would change and improve the world, inshallah. And we know that that has happened, if we look at what today was. But we're in the mindset of Adam and Hawa being human beings on the earth that are overpowered. They are in a minority as far as the other creatures are concerned. They're the minority. That's where we're at right now. That's what's being explained to us. That right now, Adam and Hawa is not the majority on earth. They are in a minority because the other beasts on the earth are the major ones. Let me see, what would be a good word for that? They dominate. They're the dominant ones on the earth. Adam at this time is not the dominant one. Adam and Hawa are not the dominant one at this time. And that's why it was so conflicting and why they had to struggle. So remember, the other beasts, Allah, gave them fur, gave them claws. The human being didn't have claws. Human being didn't have claws. He didn't have claws. They had to find a way to make coverings so that they would be warm or that they would be protected to that degree. They had to find that. They had to make adjustments as far as the environment was concerned. They had to do that. Whereas the other creatures, Allah had already given them that. So now, here it is, the first four children of Adam and Hawa. The pinnacle of earthly bliss was reached when Adam and Hawa witnessed the birth of their first children, a set of twins. Adam was a devoted father and Eve a contented mother. Okay? The twins were Cain and his sister. Later, Eve gave birth to a second set of twins, Abel and his sister. They don't name the sisters, they just name the men. Go figure. Male dominance at the time of this writing. I'm sure that the women had names, but this is in popular times. These are investigations that we have to find that we are looking at now. But at that time of this writing, they didn't put that in. It just says that Eve had a set of twins, and they named Cain or Kabil and his sister. And then it says Adam, and then later Eve gave birth to a second set of twins, Abel. Or so Kabil is Cain, and Habil is Abel and his sister. So you got two sets of twins that are going on. The family enjoyed the bounties and fruits of the earth and provided by their Lord. In other words, they're in paradise. They're in paradise. The family enjoyed the bounties and fruits of the earth provided by their Lord. The children grew up to be strong and healthy young adults. Cain tilled the field while Abel raised the cattle. Okay, so these are things that they learned as time went on. They learned how to till the field, and they learned how to not only secure cattle or secure, beasts, but also, to raise them. Because remember, uh, um, as far as tilling the earth was concerned, we remember the process. Remember the process as far as the earth is concerned, that you have to plant seeds in order for things to grow. So that's what tilling the earth was, that they learned how to secure the vegetation of the earth and how it worked and to develop it, especially for themselves and their family, and not for the wild beast, okay, but for themselves. Then they also learned about cattle. They're saying cattle, but it is all of the creatures that they could subdue. Okay, so that winded up being like same thing today, like chickens can be subdued, cattle can be subdued. Okay, and, lamb, a goat. These were creatures that could be subdued. All right, and so Cain was the one who learned how to till the earth, and Abel was the one who learned how to raise the cattle. But here we go. Cain's disobedience. The time arrived when the two young men desired life partners. This is the story that's being told by Ibn Kathir. Okay. And this is a traditional story that was told. We don't know, we can't verify it. We can't. But this here is the traditional information that has been passed down for generations to generations. In Christianity, they tell us about they mention Adam and Eve, they mention Cain and Abel, but they don't go into depth and detail and tell the story the way that it's being told here, okay, by Ibn Kathir, who has gotten this from traditional sources that came before him. Okay, the time arrived when two young men desired life partners. This was part of Allah's plan for mankind to multiply and form nations with different cultures and colors. Okay. So, yeah, that's Allah's plan. We know about the plan now. We know that now. But at this time, and we're talking about the time, here it is. You got two sets of twins. You got two sets of twins. And the time arrived when they desired to have life partners. Why would they desire to have life partners? They would desire to have life partners because if Cain was a man and had a sister, that means that she was a woman. If Abel was a man and he had a sister, that means that the sister was a woman. So you had two men and you had two sisters, two women. This is where the story is going. But again, we're thinking in the idea of Adam and Eve being people that are on the earth, and then they have children. They have a set of twins. Both of them had two sets of twins. Okay, so that's where we're at. We're not thinking about it the way that we think today. We're thinking about the circumstance that they were in at that time. And so the question is, well, how are they going to populate the earth? Well, if Cain and Abel are two men and they had two sisters, then you had You had four people that was on earth. You had two women, you had two men. This was part of Allah's plans for mankind to multiply and formulate. Allah revealed to Adam that he should marry each son to the twin sister of the other. This is the traditional story that we're talking about here. Okay, so the time arrived when the two men desired like partners. This was Allah's plan, etc., etc. Allah revealed to Adam that he should marry each son to the twin sister of the other. Okay. Adam instructed his children according to Allah's command. But Cain was displeased with the partner chosen for him. This is where it gets interesting. For Abel's twin sister was not as beautiful as his own. So Cain was supposed to be married to Abel's sister, and Abel was supposed to be married to Cain's sister. That's the way that it was supposed to go. But this is where Shaitan comes in. And so it says, this is the story is being told. I'm just repeating to you the story is being told. And we should understand it in the context. It appears that since the beginning of time, physical beauty has been a factor in the attraction between men and women. This attraction caused Cain to, they say, envy his brother Abel. He rebelled against Allah's command by refusing to accept his father's advice. So Cain did not want to marry Abel's sister because she was not as beautiful as his own sister. He didn't want to, my sister looks better than her. Why can't I marry my own sister? I want to marry my own sister. That was Cain's thing. I want to marry my own sister. According to the story, this is what the story is saying. That Cain, he disagreed with that. I mean, it seemed to be the right thing. I mean, that's what Adam said. Adam instructed them that this is what the Lord told him to do. Cain, you marry Abel's sister, and Abel, you marry Cain's sister. That's how it goes. You marry each other. But this thing about beauty comes in there, and in the heart and the mind, the suggestion from Shaitan, this comes in, and rather than follow the instruction, Cain is like, gets rebellious. I don't want to do it. And I don't want to do it because, you want me to marry her, but my sister is more beautiful than her. I'd rather be with my own sister. So at first glance, Cain's rebellion might appear strange, but we should remember that although man has a pure nature, the potential for dichotomy exists, the potential for disagreement and the ability to what we say, idea of choice. That I would prefer to have this than to have that. I like chocolate ice cream as opposed to a vanilla ice cream. I don't like the color green, but I like the color blue. So when the human being has an opportunity to make a choice, dichotomy between two things, like it's like out, you gonna have me, you want me to, I like blue, but you gonna tell me I gotta accept green. That's what it is. You telling I like blue, but you telling me that I have to accept green. And so this is where this whole idea about the dichotomy comes in, because it's like, I don't like the choice that you're telling me that I have to make. Basically, that's what it is. So This was a plan. Okay. This was part of the Law's plan. Yeah. Allah revealed to them that you should marry each of his twin sister. Adam instructed his children according to Allah, but Cain was displeased with the partner chosen for him, for Abel's sister was not as beautiful as his own. It appears that since the beginning of time, physical beauty has been a factor in the attraction between man and women. This attraction caused Cain to envy his brother. Uh, and this is human beings. We should understand this, that Cain was satisfied. Cain was no Cain was dissatisfied, and Abel was like, okay, that's what you say. I don't care whether you give me blue or green. Like, but you say that, like the blue is good for me. Okay, that's what you say. Then that's what I'll do. I'll just go with it. So that's how Abel was. But the attraction caused Cain to envy. They say envy his brother, but the thing is that we should understand that Cain probably loved his brother, but he thought that he got the better decision of the two, as opposed to saying, he envied his brother. Envy is such a hard word. It's a hard word. So, the idea of saying that he envied him is a little hard, I believe. But again, we're putting ourselves in that time and coming to understand the human being, and that here it is, Adam instructed that they should marry, Cain, you're going to marry Abel's sister, and Abel, you're going to marry Cain's sister. Abel was satisfied with it. He was like, yeah, okay, all right, that's what it is. Okay. But Cain was like, I disagree. And he had a reason for it. He had a reason. So it's not like he didn't love his brother. He did love his brother, but he didn't like the decision that was made for him, because he disagreed because of this thing that's called beauty. He disagreed. Look, I want to marry the most beautiful sister. And that's how human beings are. You telling me I got to marry the one that's uglier. Not even uglier. She might not have been uglier, but it's just that the one that Cain's sister was probably more attractive, more beautiful, more easy to look at, more easy to look like that. And so here it is. Abel got the one that was more beautiful than the other sister. She was just a little different. But when it came to a choice, this is what the human being has. The human being has a choice. I like red, I like, or I don't like blue. But on a small scale like that, something that's just as small as that, I don't like chocolate ice cream. I would rather have vanilla ice cream. Well, he got the vanilla ice cream. That was the ice cream that I wanted. That was the situation. So it didn't have anything to do with, Cain and Abel, this thing about love. No, they loved each other, but it wasn't the thing about the love, but what it was is just a thing that, it was showing that the human being had the choice, and Cain didn't like the choice that he was given. Sister Martha, do you want to say something? Okay, I guess you didn't. All right. So I hope you
I'm driving. Alhamdulillah. I'm just listening.
Okay. Very good. Wa alaikum assalam. Okay, so it's important to understand and see, we're taking the time to do that because we want to understand that this is a situation that was the same for Adam and Eve when they was in the garden. They had everything. They was good. Everything was good. But they made a choice. And they made the choice to eat from the tree. Well, this is the same situation that has been put on the children. That they came to a situation where they could make a choice. And they saw how things were. Cain and Abel, they saw how things were. And their father gave them instruction. And the father said, this comes from Allah. And this is what Allah is telling us we got to do. Abel was like, okay, yeah, all right, fine. But Cain, you disagree with. It's like, yo, man, like, he's getting the vanilla ice cream. I want the vanilla ice cream. I don't like the choice. You telling me I gotta go for chocolate. I don't like chocolate, but I gotta go for it. Yeah, all right, I'll go for it, but I disagree with it. He got the better part of the deal. That's what it was. It's not like, and I think it's important to say that Cain is not a thing where Cain didn't love his brother. He did love his brother. But what ended up happening is that Cain just felt that his brother got the best of the deal. And so let us continue. At glance, At first glance, Cain's rebellion might appear strange, but we should remember that although man has a pure nature, the potential for dichotomy exists. The potential for, disagreement, for I like red, I like blue, that's the dichotomy exists. In other words, he had both good and bad qualities. He can become greedy, covetous, possessive, selfish, and even destructive. Man is therefore capable of seeking self-satisfaction. So that's what it was. It was self-satisfaction. And that is something that is innate in all human beings. Self-satisfaction. The whole idea about, I like blue, or I like red, I like blue and green. This is, that, like, I'll be all right if I have blue or green, but I would prefer to have blue than to have green. That's the self-satisfaction that's in the human being. That's the self-satisfaction that's in there. Of course, it says here, man is therefore capable of seeking self-satisfaction, even if it leads to failure in this life and in the hereafter. So basically, it's saying that this idea of self-satisfaction is something that can uh I mean, they went, as far as, in this life and the hereafter, et cetera, because you pursue the things that you like, that's going to please you, as opposed to what's going to be best for the family, or what's going to be best for the community, or what's going to be best for the country, you know. So that's what that means. The path to goodness lies in harnessing the enemy within him. Okay, so the, so what we're talking about is the path of goodness lies in harnessing the enemy within him, which is the seducer, the whisperer. The path to goodness lies in harnessing the enemy, the seducer, the whisperer that's within. That is the challenge that Adam and Eve had, and they were able to conquer it. But now it came on their children, and their children had to now learn how to handle this whole idea of harnessing the enemy within. And the enemy within was the seducer, the whisperer, was Shaitan or Satan. um, Controlling evil thoughts and practicing moderation in his desires and actions, which is true today. His rewards then will be the delights of this world and the hereafter. Thus, Allah tests us through our divided nature. Again, remember, this divided nature that's within us is the same divided nature that was in Adam and Eve when they was in paradise. And now, even though they learned how to control it, when they came on the earth, they learned how to control it. They had children, you know, they couldn't force their children to have control over the basic ideas, of right and wrong. Because each individual law gave each individual that right, to choose. But in some circumstances, you can't choose. And in this situation with Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel, there wasn't nothing to choose. They couldn't choose. But Cain wanted to choose. He wanted to choose. But look, we're dealing with a situation here. Cain, it's you and your sister, and it's Abel and his sister, and y'all have to marry each other. Well, I don't want to marry her. That's where it came up. So if there was an opportunity, if there was more children, then it would be like, okay, well, okay, you might, but we was in a situation. This was a situation where there wasn't the family couldn't choose. Cain, you marry Abel's sister. Abel, you marry Cain's sister. That's what it is. But this is where the disagreement came in. That's where it came in. So, that would have been best for the family. That was best for the family. But Cain didn't see it like that because of this whole idea. Well, I got a right to choose for myself. And the choice that you're making for me, I don't agree with it. So he didn't think about the bigger picture. The bigger picture was, like for the family. That would have been the bigger picture. Okay, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and do it for the good of the family. But instead, he was like, yo, I don't like it. And, like this was self-satisfaction that he was going with. And he wasn't thinking about the bigger picture. He was just thinking about his own self-satisfaction. And so that's where this whole idea of envy and all the rest of this stuff that they talk about came in. And I think that it's really important to understand that. So anybody that has questions or comments, you can raise your hand, and we will discuss it to that degree. But I think that sets the foundation for understanding what's going on as far as because in all religious perspectives, whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Jew, the whole idea of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel comes in to that picture. And I think that we should understand it in its most practical way. Ishmael family, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum to you and all the listeners. So, yeah, I appreciate this reading. So, in your opinion, does this justify incest based on this reading because they had to do it?
Well, yeah, they had to do it. Yeah. I mean,
Hold on, it might be an echo. I might be in a bad area. So you're saying they had to do it, but now we're not supposed to do it? So it was okay then, but it's not okay now?
Well, I think that what we should think about on this basis is that the way that we're being told, and this is the traditional story that happens in with Adam and Eve. Remember, in all religious traditions, it talks about Adam and Eve, and it talks about Cain and Abel. It talks about that to that degree, and it talks about it that the religious traditions just say that Cain slew his brother Abel. That's what it says. But here in this book, the stories of the lives of the prophets gives us a more in-depth meaning that if there were two sets of twins and they were the only parts of the community and they were also to procreate, that Allah told Adam that, like Cain, you should marry Abel's daughter, and Abel, you should marry Cain's daughter. That's what that is said, and it makes sense to that degree. So at that time, see, today we label it as incest. That's what we label it today. But at that time, it was about being procreative, making sure that the family survived, making sure that the species survived. That's what that was about at that time. So we shouldn't make a comparison to that time and this time. We shouldn't make a comparison to that degree. What do you think, Ishmael?
To me, the understanding makes it problematic to me, because when you just look at it in that, because it doesn't, from what I've read, it doesn't say that they represented just one person. That's an interpretation that some people think, because it tells us that Adam is a community. Abel represents social interests. Cain represents industrial interests, and they were to marry one another to have that balance. That's to me. That's that. What they call it. Two. You said something about a dual consciousness. You said something about two different.
A dichotomy,
A dichotomy,
an ability
an ability to
say that I like red as opposed to liking blue. I like chocolate ice cream as opposed to liking vanilla ice cream. That's the dichotomy. That being has the ability to do.
Right, but in the book, it said like it said something like compete dual. It said something right at the end of the book. You said it had something to do with two different perspectives. I can't remember what the book said. It said something about I'll have to, but to me, those two different things represent the social interest and the industrial interest.
But you're saying that. See, you're saying that, but you're not taking it from. That's a higher understanding of the base, the base idea of Cain having a opinion and Abel have an opinion, because and then relating that to the way that humans have the same, that we today have the same idea. See, we can go industrial, we can do all of that, but those are higher understandings. But if we talk about just Cain and Abel being part of the family of Adam and Eve, then when we understand it to that degree, we want to understand, well, what was the basis for why did Cain feel like that? As far as that, why did he feel like that? What was the human part of him that felt like that? And the human part of him that felt like that was the dichotomy that was within him, that's represented by all human beings, that he wanted the power of choice. That's what he wanted. He didn't want to do it for the good of the community. He wanted to do it for his self-satisfaction. And that's a human thing. That's what we're looking at.
Right, and I guess our basis, because my base is that they all represent communities. I guess that's the base I'm starting with, and that's why he wanted to marry his sister. He wanted to stick with the industrial outlook. He didn't want to be checked by the social interest. So I guess my basis is that they represent communities. So that may be where we, where it separates. So
I think because I really think that it's important that we understand the base operation of the human being, and that we know about the representation today because we're thinking about it on a higher level. What we're trying to get here is the basic feeling of a human being that it's Cain and Abel, and what was the basis of this human feeling that he had. And the basis of the human feeling is, I don't think that it was that he didn't love his brother. I don't think that it was he didn't want to disobey his father, Adam. I don't think he wanted to do that. It's just that in all human beings, there's an idea, the base idea in the human being of self-satisfaction, of well, and the example I gave is that I don't like chocolate ice cream. I like vanilla ice cream. But you telling me that I gotta go for I gotta take the chocolate ice cream, or I gotta take the sister. I gotta take. I would prefer to have, my own sister. I would prefer to have that. But you telling me I have to accept this. That's the base. That's the base human. That's the base understanding.
Okay. That's the base understanding. I see your point. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. I do see your point.
Right. And that's the way that I'm just trying to explain it on the base. There are higher understandings that we have today. Okay, they have higher understandings, especially with the community that we come from. but like I always try to take it to understand it in its physical form. Understand that Adam and Eve was in a paradise. They were in paradise, and they messed up. They messed up because the whisperer whispered to them, and they winded up disobeying God. In the process of disobeying God, God put them on earth and told them, now you got to struggle. This is the consequence of disobeying me, that you have to struggle. And then they came on the earth, and we're talking about a physical situation. We're not going the high understanding, but just understanding, this pattern of disobedience, on how Shaitan is still the whisperer, and how the whisperer, I mean, this whole idea of the whisperer following them even to the earth. And even though they did well at a time where everything was well for them, and Adam and Eve, and they had two sets of children and everything was going good, here it is, God telling them, said, listen, I want you to procreate. In order for you to procreate now, I want this sister to be married to the brother, and this is married to the brother, the opposites, so that like you could procreate. But then the idea of self-satisfaction is comes into the picture, because and again, like I said, all in the Bible and the Torah, Quran, the Bible, Torah, and Quran, they tell us about Cain and Abel. But they tell us about Cain and Abel, and they make it like like Cain, just had this, just envious kind of thing. You don't think that Cain loved his brother? You don't think that he loved his brother? This is the brother he grew up with. You don't think he loved him? He did. But he was put in a situation. He was put in a situation where self-satisfaction got into him. According to this story, self-satisfaction got into him. It's like, I know that you're telling me that I got to do it for the good of the family, that I got to marry this sister. I know that's what you're telling me, but I disagree with it. I would prefer, and the human being has the ability to prefer. That's a natural thing that's put in us. But then I ask you, how many times are we in a situation today where this idea of self-satisfaction comes up within us? And we say, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put my self-satisfaction to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and do it for the good of the family. I'm going to put my self-satisfaction aside, and I'm going to do it for the good of the community. How many times? That's the same natural feeling that Cain had. Abel didn't have that feeling. Abel was like, look, that's what you say, that I got to marry. Okay, that's what I'll do. I'll do it. What? For the good of the family. If that's what God told you, Adam, Father Adam, that's what God told you, then I'll go ahead and do it. But Cain was like, I don't like that sister. I got a choice. It's my sister or Abel's sister. It's my sister or Abel's sister. It's like, it's not like I can't. Why? Well, if we're supposed to populate the, well, why can't I just go ahead and have my own sister? Why can't I do that? No, I would be sad that I could do that. But there's like, no, that's not how it's supposed to go. Like, you got to marry her sister. And so the self-satisfaction idea, is the only point that I'm bringing in, that is something that even follows us today, that all human beings have that idea of self-satisfaction. And sometimes when following this idea of self-satisfaction, we do it for ourselves and don't do it for the good of the family, and don't do it for the good of the community, don't do it for the good of the world. We just do it for our own self-satisfaction. And that's a base idea that's in all human beings to that degree. This is a base idea that happens in us. And this, I believe, this is the lesson that we learn from this situation. I got like 3 minutes left in the program. And thank you, Ishmael, for that. Because like in you asking that question, even gave me a better understanding, of where I was really trying to go with it, and not to put aside the higher ideas, about, one community, and even, to the point where, we are told that Adam represents a community. Okay, but this story is not telling us about Adam representing a community because, I mean, that's true on a higher level, if we think about it on a higher level. But if we think about it on the basis of just individuals, I think the story is trying to tell us, about the base ideas of humans. And this situation that this story is giving us is that Adam and Eve, they had their first children were twins. Okay, and then you say, y'all got to marry each other. And here it is, Shaitan comes in and appeals to the self-satisfaction of one of the brothers who they love each other. It's not like they don't love each other, but self-satisfaction comes in. It's like, that's something that we even deal with today. The whole idea of self-satisfaction. It is a natural that's in the human being. It's something that's natural, that's in each one of the human beings. And we'll see it with, mothers and fathers. We'll see it with sisters and brothers. We'll see it because it's something that's natural that's in there. And if we don't teach, if we don't understand on how to, the influencer, the seducer, the whisperer, who will say, well, why can't I have it? Well, why I got to take it? Well, why he have to get it? And why I got to get this here? That's natural in the human being. But it has to be something that when it's detected from those who, like Adam and Eve, or like our mothers and fathers, when we see that coming up, not only in ourselves and our spouses, well, why I got to, why we got to eat at McDonald's, why we can't eat at Wendy's? You know, it's not like, again, it's not like love is lost from family. Yeah, I love my family, but I didn't like this idea about going to McDonald's. I wanted to go to Burger King. We going to McDonald's. So that's this decision that the family makes, and then they sit there pouting and everything. I don't like McDonald's. But that's natural. That's natural. That's natural in the human being. The dichotomy, the ability to choose this way or that way. The ability to choose that. That's a natural thing that has been put in all human beings. It's not in other creatures like that. The other creatures don't argue, well, I don't want this, I don't want that. You don't see that in other creatures. It may be there, but we can see it in the human being. We can see it, and we see it every day with the human being. Anyway, it's 9:01 right now. I thank you so very much, brothers and sisters, for being with me today. I really enjoyed this conversation. Again, we were talking about Adam and Eve being making the decision to eat from the tree, and that in eating from the tree that there was a results. There was a consequence from eating, and the consequence of eating meant that they had to come on earth and struggle. They were in paradise, but because they were in paradise, they had everything that they needed, everything. But because they disobeyed Allah and they ate from the tree, then there was a consequence that they had to face. And the consequence was that they came down on earth, and now there was toil and there was struggle. And Adam and Eve, they were successful. They were being successful in the toil and struggle. They were being successful with it. And they were learning how to cultivate the land, and they were learning how to go ahead and domesticate the animals, for their good. They would learn how to do that. And then God told them, okay, so everything was good. Everything was good. There was love, all love, and everything was fine. Adam and Eve, now God tells them, now listen, I want you to populate. What you're going to have to do Cain, your sister is going to be married to Abel's sister. And Abel, your sister, is going to be married to Cain's sister. So it seems simple. It's very simple. It's just like, okay, that was Allah letting them know, look, it's time for you to procreate. Okay, when we're talking about an individual thing, that's what I'm saying. Let's put ourselves in the minds of Adam and Eve and just Cain and Abel, and the twins. Let's put our mind in that mindset physically, just in that mindset that those are the four. Put ourselves in, or the four, the twins on each. Let's put ourselves in mindset. There's higher understandings as far as that's concerned, yeah. But let's talk about it on the basis of, did Cain love his brother? Did Abel love his brother? Yes, they did. They grew up together and all the rest of that. We know that. But there was something that came in Cain that he disagreed with. He disagreed. And it's through this disagreement that Shaitan was able to whisper and able to seduce, because the whole idea is that Cain got into self-satisfaction. He wanted to do it for his self-satisfaction as opposed to doing it for the good of the family and the good for the community. So we will continue next time, and we'll talk a little more about the disobedience of Cain, and take a look at that, and then even talk about, the first death and the first burial, inshallah. So I thank you so very much, brothers and sisters, for being with me. Sister Martha, if you're there, would you like to say something about the programs that's going to be on American Muslim 360 today? Oh, but let me say this to you today too, that at 10 a.m. will be Sisters in Islam, where Sister Martha and Sister Rashida and other women in Islam, they read from the Quran in Arabic and English and have a discussion about the next 10 ayats, or the next 10 verses that are in Surah 2, Al-Baqarah. I think that's from Surah 110 to 119, or from 101, Surah 101 to 101 to 110. I think that's where it is. But it's always a very interesting and powerful conversation that is had. That there's sisters only, and then later on, then the other participants come in and can say something about it. And so until next time, if there's nothing else to say, I'm going to give you the greetings of Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Again, thank you, Ishmael. Really appreciate it, brother. We was able to move it forward.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.